These gay nerds committed what they called the perfect crime, or so they thought. This is the story of Leopold and Loeb. Pictured here is Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb. They both grew up in Kenwood, an affluent neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. They were both extremely intelligent men who came from extremely wealthy families. Nathan was a nationally recognized ornithologist, and Richard was the youngest graduate of the University of Michigan at just 17. They had known each other casually and had similar social circles, but they didn't really become friends until the 1920s. They both attended the University of Chicago Law School, and this is where they discovered they both had a mutual interest in crime. Nathan was particularly fascinated by Nietzsche's concept of Übermensch, or supermen, who were transcendent individuals possessing unique capabilities and qualities and superior intellect that rose them above the law. They began committing acts of petty theft and vandalism just to prove that they could get away with it, which they did. They began to commit more heinous crimes, including arson, but they were disappointed at the lack of media coverage. They decided to commit the perfect crime in which they would garner public attention, still not be caught, and then affirm their self-perceived status as supermen. Just as a side note, during a police raid on Nathan's home, they discovered some love letters that he had written to Richard, which suggested that they were engaged in a homosexual relationship. When Nathan was 19 and Richard was 18, they decided to kill a younger adolescent victim as their perfect crime. They spent 7 months planning this murder. They would hang out at the Harvard School for Boys, scouting out potential victims. They finally settled on Richard's second cousin, Bobby Franks. Bobby was the son of wealthy watch manufacturer Jacob Franks. On May 21st, 1924, the two of them rented a car under a fake name and they used it to pick up Bobby from school. Exactly what happens next remains unclear, but it is believed that Nathan was driving the car, Richard was sitting in the back seat, and Bobby was sitting in the front passenger seat. And then Richard started hitting him in the head with a chisel, at which point Richard dragged him into the back seat and then gagged him until he died. They dumped his body in a spot 25 miles outside the south side of Chicago. As a way to obscure the body, they poured hydrochloric acid on his hands, face, and genitals. Bobby Franks is dead, and these two were obviously caught, but what went wrong in their plan? Find out in part 2.